right, hello and welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen. So I am so thrilled to be having this, what I'll call perfect timing interview as part of the Fulfillment Project expert interview series. I'm here with Gloria Vanderhorst, a seasoned psychologist who's practiced for many, many years. And one of the awesome things I get to do is interview people with expertise and real tried and true wisdom in the world. And both an interview and you've got a project of your own that we're going to highlight today to really help express some of the practical wisdoms of what it means to live a fulfilled life, the real strategies and challenges that we face. And Gloria, as a psychologist, so first of all, welcome. Thanks so much for being here
Thank
with
you.
me.
It's great to be here.
As a practicing psychologist, first of all, let's do a brief background. So, tell us, how long have you been practicing, and who specifically have you been working with for the majority of that time?
So my practice is going to hit 50 years very
Whoa.
soon. So
Yes.
that's a milestone. And I am actually grateful to my Calculus 2 teacher for sending me into psychology. I was a math major. I loved math. Math was easy. I took psychology as a break from math, so that was my minor. And Calculus 2 was a brand new professor straight out of Harvard.
Mhm.
And she filled the front blackboard, never turned around to the class, wrote with her right hand, erased with her left. The entire class is lost, of course. And I passed Calculus 2.
Mhm.
But that experience really showed me that math was not my path.
Mhm.
And I am so grateful to that professor, that class, for shifting me into psychology because that's where I belong.
Mhm.
And I think it's true of all people if we can really pay attention that the universe, the world, opens doors for us, gives us guidance if we just pay attention to it. And that's really what I'm about in terms of the writing that I do. I want to give people guidance. I want them to open their own doors and see their potential, take action, move in a direction that leads them to uncover all of the parts of themselves that they can thrive and they can be connected to other people. We're born to be connected, right? We come in physically
Yep.
connected, and then we actually spend the rest of our lives seeking connection with other people.
Yeah.
So I want to facilitate that, particularly for men.
Yes. Okay. We're definitely going to get into the details of why men. And I just want to comment on what you've just said because there's some stuff there that I absolutely resonate with in my practice, and it's also why we are now actually published together. So when you talk about the importance of awareness,
Mhm.
it's really right. It's like you're writing to help people become in greater awareness of all their parts, which I also really, really love. It's about loving
Mhm.
all of our parts, and in that awareness, opening up to life opportunity. And you've had the real direct experience, 50 years of it, of seeing what happens when that actually gets blocked.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because it's actually, we're talking about reflection. So I was going to talk about this later, but right away, I just want to bring out that you just published a journal, which was part of your writings over the last, I think,
Right.
several years.
Mhm.
Read, reflect, respond. Read, reflect, respond. I have read almost all of it because I read it as it came out.
That's great.
And I tell you, these are short stories
Mhm.
that beautifully intertwined storytelling with personal reflection and growth. It's available on Amazon right now. And I want to put in another plug for me.
Mhm.
It's like it's actually really connected, showed how much we're connected, because at the end of it, you can get a QR code, which leads you to my body of work as
That's
well,
right.
which is the life inventory assessment to, and it's all about really it's reading, reflecting, and responding, or respondability to our
And
life
the
opportunity.
neat thing about this particular book is that you can go at it in any direction you want,
Yep.
right? There's not a beginning to an end,
Yes.
right? The essays are categorized in a variety of different ways. You can pick one in the middle, you can pick one at the end, you can move around. It's got such great flexibility to it. But the key for me is that the reflect page has no lines
Yep.
on it. So many journals that you pick up will have a story or stimulating questions, and then they'll have these lines where you're supposed to respond. It misses the point completely of how your brain really functions. We come into the world as brilliant human beings. We process everything for the first few years without language.
Yeah.
So I don't want lines,
Yep.
right? I want to be able to draw, to scribble, to
Yes.
to
Yes.
do whatever comes up in my body because it's your body that holds the story. It isn't just your brain. It's up there.
Mhm.
It's up there, but your body will give you the cues to access it. So that's the part that I like about this journaling book is
Yeah.
that you're free. If you want to write words, great. write
Yes.
words. All of us need to write words. But if the thing that comes up in you is, I just want to scribble, I want to draw, I want to,
Yes.
right? You have to be able to be free. And
Yes.
then that really gives you access to pieces of history in your brain. You can't get there
Yeah.
any other way. Words will not get you there consistently.
I love that. I love that. It's giving that blank page, so that permission to access all the parts.
Right,
It's like you can't get in the box because the box isn't there.
right, right.
So I really love the way you express that and the honoring of our whole being. So okay, fantastic. So for those listening, please pay attention to what we go through here, and that might be a great way for you to evaluate. Hey, is this a book that you want to pick up?
Right. I hope we do.
I don't recommend things lightly, and I 100% without a doubt recommend it as a read that will help you grow. I have no doubt in my mind, and it does it in such a really poetic way.
Thank you,
So
Maurice. That's lovely.
thank you for hitting the publish button, right,
Right.
on sharing your wisdom with the world. Thank you so much. So now I want to get into who you've been serving. So for the past 50 years,
Years, about 50 years,
yeah.
right?
And you mentioned today you've got a real spirit to serve men. Tell us
Absolutely.
a little bit about why. Where's that inspiration coming from?
So it started when I started my practice, I started working with preschoolers, and in particular with preschool boys. Because if you go into a preschool class,
Mhm.
right, the little girls are cooperative and they're participatory, and the little boys are bouncing around and going under tables and
Picking their nose
distracted
and
over
yeah,
here,
parts. Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And preschoolers are run by women, not by men. They're run by women. And so the women can immediately identify with the little girls and their ability to sit still and raise their hand and be cooperative. The little boys, they don't understand. They don't get it. They don't know what to do with them. And so I was fortunate enough to be friends with a director of a preschool, and I wanted to look at how these boys were being related to and what happens when the preschool teachers see their behavior as inappropriate and start to label them as attention deficit disordered kids.
Mhm.
And at that time, attention deficit was something that people said, well, we can't find it till they hit middle school. And I thought, if it exists in middle school, people, it
Yeah.
exists in preschool.
Mhm.
So I spent a lot of time working with the director, and I developed an assessment tool to use with the kids in her particular school. We used it in a couple of other schools as well. And the result of that was very fascinating. Because of working with these preschool boys, the fathers of these children started to put themselves on my calendar. So
Okay.
I've had this history of working with men from the very beginning.
Mhm.
And it just was accumulating so much information and clarity about what we do to boys in this society and other societies. And we've done it for centuries,
Yes. So
right? We've done it for centuries.
I love that your body of work in your next publication is really going to be highlighting, the what's happening to male
Right,
evolution, and it
right.
really reflects. I think so. Certainly, some of my own personal experiences growing up as a boy and a man, and trying to
Mhm.
connect in the world. Um, the themes that you're highlighting are so needed. So let's talk about some of those themes. So from the very beginning of your career, you started to work with young boys, and then found that you were working with the fathers. And tell us about what are the themes that you've really identified to be problematic in terms of what the common male growing up in today's society has been, is challenged to evolve
Right.
against, I'll say.
So we have to understand, and I'm so grateful to research and all the people that do research for us, but we must understand that a male infant comes into the world with a broader range of emotional expression than the female. So if you just stop and think about that, right?
Yeah,
Boys have a wider range of emotional expression than girls do.
I did not
They're
know that. That is a
born with that, right? They come out with that. Nobody gives it to them. They're born with that. And by the time they can walk, that access to emotion has been significantly reduced.
whoa. And
It's huge
are you saying that that access has been reduced due to environment?
due to the environment.
Wow, tell
Yes.
me more. Yeah.
Right?
Whoops.
So it's very clear, right? I'm a woman. As a woman, I resonate with females. And so I have a little girl, all right? I have an infant girl, and I resonate with that girl. I'm going to spend time with her. I'm going to talk with her. I'm going to kind of understand her as a reflection of my femaleness. Not true with a boy, all right? And traditionally, women have raised boys The male is, taking his spear, leaving the cave, killing the animal so that his family can have food and live still, right? For generations, the male's gone out to work. The woman has stayed home to raise the children. The female does not resonate with the boy infant. And so it isn't so much that she spends less time, but the connection, the energy, the conversation is very different. Women tend to do the practical things with their male infant and do the emotional things with their female infant. They'll spend more time chatting, they'll be more curious. And so the boy who comes into the world with this capability of emotional expression, first of all, because it is a wider range, is a little uncomfortable for mother, right? Because that wider range really means, on one end, kind of more irritation, more
Yeah.
negative
Yep.
expression,
Hmm.
right? And,
Yep.
and so mothers kind of gonna want to stay away from that,
Hmm.
discourage that, not be as comfortable with that. He gets loud, she's not going to mirror that loudness.
Right.
But if the girl is kind of making noise, mom will mirror that noise, but
Right.
mom's got a limit, right? I'm not going to kind of go up in this range and play with you
Hmm.
up there. So the boy learns very early to narrow his expression as an infant. And then we just, it gets accumulated. I have a great little story
Yeah.
that I want to tell you
Yeah.
just to illustrate this,
Sure.
right? So we have friends, we have a toddler female, our friends have a toddler male. We're visiting,
Hmm.
having a good time, right? The kids are playing over in one part of the room, the adults are chatting and having a great conversation. My daughter, right,
Hmm.
wants the boy's toy,
Hmm.
takes it,
Hmm.
keeps it. He, of course, protests, right? She refuses. And so he cries, a normal, natural reaction to being, turned down,
Hmm.
right? And he starts moving towards his father. His father takes the back of his hand and whacks that kid in the chest
Hmm.
and knocks him to the floor. Now, if that isn't a powerful message
Yeah.
about emotions that are soft,
Hmm.
right, on this end of the continuum,
Yeah.
are to be cut out of your life.
Yeah.
And we do that to boys with great consistency. Go
Yeah.
to the mall, right?
Yeah.
And watch a toddler female get into some kind of trouble, run up to mom or dad. She will get picked up and
Yeah.
then asked what happened. The
Yeah.
little boy will not get picked up. He will be asked what happened. If he gives a good enough response, he will be picked up.
Mm.
All right. This stuff infuriates me.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
not,
yeah.
it's
As you,
not the way we should be
yeah.
raising our boys.
Yeah. As you told that story, and thanks for telling both of those stories. So that first story was from your, like that actually happened, right? From,
That is a true story.
yeah. And, to maybe hopefully to lesser degrees, in terms of physicality, but I can absolutely resonate with things that I've seen, that would mimic that experience.
Mhm.
And then the mall experience, the way I heard it, this isn't the way you said it, but just another example, it's like, what happened versus what happened.
Right.
The girl might get the question, what happened, honey?
Right.
I got three girls, right? And so I can't relate if I had been raising a boy, but I
Hmm.
can I can guess that I'd probably be like, what happened? Like
Right.
what did you do
Right. There'll be a tone difference too. Yeah. What'd you do to
versus
get in
are you
trouble?
okay? And these things happen unconsciously without blame.
Right.
When
Oh,
you're
we're
describing,
trained that way. All right. It's
yeah,
just like, we're pickled.
yeah,
So, I like the analogy of being pickled. And I've written a couple times about men just being pickled because my mother used to make pickles,
yep,
right? You get it. There's a big crock
hmm,
and you put, vinegar and some spices in there and you throw the cucumber in and just let it sit and let it sit and let it sit. And over time, it changes into a pickle. And we
yeah,
do that to our boys. We
yeah.
pickle them into being something other than what they were designed to be.
Yeah. So let's take that experience of growing up, right? And let's fast forward it, right? Let's
Mhm.
go through, like, because we have so much time, but I really want to fast forward to when those boys become fathers
Right.
and husbands. So
Mhm.
what are the traits of someone that has narrowed their range of emotionality and
Right.
actually been, right, taught to like not only narrow it, but to stay like, this is what being a man is.
Mhm.
What are the challenges and the traits that you've observed from how they become men and how they end up fathering?
So if you just take what we understand about the training of little boys
Hmm.
and project it forward, and then this person marries a female, right? Or marries a male,
Hmm.
right? Falls in love with someone, they decide to have children. The expectation of the mother in this situation is that the father will be able to understand the range of emotion that she experiences, will be able to empathize with that, and we'll be able to, in many ways, kind of serve her because childbirth comes with an emotional consequence afterwards,
Yeah.
right? You don't just bounce right back. Your body goes through significant changes. Your brain goes through changes. So emotionally, you're a slightly different, and some people dramatically
Mhm.
different person than you were before having that baby. But we have narrowed the male's access to emotion. He can't do it. All right. We have trained him so that he can't spread that range unless he gets significant help and support to take the risk because it's dangerous. These are like fences,
Mhm.
and you're not supposed to move outside of those fences.
Yep.
Right. And you can see it every place. All right. Guys get together to, I know a group that gets together to play board games, right?
Yep.
Other groups get together to play cards.
Yep.
And the conversation in those groups will never be about feelings.
Yep.
Get a group of women together, first part of the conversation is
Yep.
about feelings.
Yep.
All right. So we've robbed the male of the ability to reach into their psyche. And they have these things, these feelings exist
Mhm.
there, but they can't access them. We've put up fences that say you don't go there. And unless this person is really challenged to go there or has incredible insight and decides, I'm going to move outside of the fences that the culture has placed for me. And that's a rare person.
Mhm.
Most of the male population will stay inside the fence and have an awareness
Mhm.
that there's more, but have a fear and a training that says just stay safe, stay
Yep.
inside the fence and tolerate any of the negativity, any of the irritation from other people, whether it's your wife, your children, your neighbors,
Yeah.
just tolerate it.
I would imagine, like as you described this, like that you're describing a pressure cooker or a cage,
A good
where
image. Mm-hmm,
as a human being, the emotions are still happening, the
mm-hmm,
reactions are still happening,
mm-hmm,
but the access to know what to do and how to express and to feel
mm-hmm.
safe in
Right.
like and accepted to be able to do that just isn't
I
there.
think
So
safety is the key.
it ends up in this pressure cooker, and
Mm-hmm,
I think we often see that in behaviors of avoidance,
mm-hmm,
distraction, alcohol abuse, substance abuse.
mm-hmm.
Um,
So our
and
jails are full of men,
yeah.
right? That's not a surprise.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
set that up,
Mhm. Yeah.
right? We let you express anger and irritation, but not longing or needing
Yeah.
or wanting. You
Yeah.
you can't express those. That's why our jails are full of men.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. Are there any other with this happening, this pressure cooker of a situation happening, when you've got men in your office, what are the problems they're having in their life?
Communication is number one.
Hmm.
The ability to communicate, particularly within their family,
Yep.
that's incredibly difficult. Communication, even with their children.
Hmm.
There are these automatic reactions that we have that are trained in us from childhood. And unless we have an opportunity to confront them, reflect on them, we're going to respond in the same way that we were trained.
Yep.
Uh, and so once again, if your little boy is crying, you're more likely to whack him
Hmm.
or diminish any reaction that you have.
Yeah.
And she'll get comfort.
Yeah.
So it is, just the expression. And so has to be established for a male to be able to trust that they can move outside of the social boundaries that have been created for them and experiment with all the feelings that they're actually having them. It's
Yeah.
not that they've disappeared.
Yep.
They're
Yep.
there, but they're outside the
Yep.
fence. And so I can't really trust another person
Yep.
to be able to give me the opportunity to express them, to travel into that field. So within the therapy session, establishing trust and safety is really critical in working with a male. And once you've established that safety, then you can be a container for all of these experiences and histories and feelings and injuries that then the person can actually make friends with, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the stuff that we hold in our brains is not really there to harm us.
Mhm.
It's there because it got planted,
Yep.
right? I didn't go out and pick it. It got planted
Yep.
there, but it's not there to harm us. It does harm us because it holds us back from doing certain things. It gives us concepts about ourselves that are not realistic.
Mhm.
So if I can gain someone's trust, if the man will get comfortable enough to know this is a safe space, then we can travel into all of those other areas, express those feelings, find those pieces of history where my dad whacked me in the chest, and we can replay them in a way that gives you relief. I don't have to carry that shame anymore. That crying is somehow something I should avoid at all cost because, it's going to crack my ribs if you get hit again.
Yeah. Yeah. So several reflections from what you just shared there. So in your therapeutic process, you've experienced how important it is, particularly with men, to earn and create that place of safety. And
Absolutely.
I'm thinking of that as like, yes, in terms of therapeutic goals, that's the small box. The goal is that they break through those patterns so that they
Right.
can feel safe out in the world, not just in that therapeutic center. The
Right.
ultimate goal is to be safe to say, hey, I'm feeling like this, or to lead the way
Right.
in a conversation. And that's what when I think about it, I get excited because that's the ultimate goal. That's what we want to
Yeah.
be
It
doing.
is exciting because once a man breaks through that barrier
Yes.
and gives himself permission to access all of these feelings that have been taboo and distant, men are brilliant, right? They can take it and run. The interesting part about doing therapy with a male is when you get to that point that the barrier has been broken and now he can go into the full range
Yep.
of feeling states, his need for therapy becomes something. I'm going to check in with you in X weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months, right? I mean, guys just go fly,
Quick
right?
activators.
Once they get it,
Mhm.
once they get it, they don't have to be directed on how to make use of it.
Yeah. That
They're
makes sense.
brilliant.
Yeah. And I heard you describe really two major barriers that exist from kind of, that exist. One is capability. So it's actually growing the capability to have the vocabulary
Right.
on how to experience in a healthy
Hmm.
way this range of human emotions. And
Hmm.
that's a true capability thing. Your next book is going to speak exactly to that.
Absolutely.
So there's a foreshadow. So there's capability, right? Train and just like you can learn how to fix a car or bounce a basketball,
Right.
you can learn this stuff. And there's more incredible materials and teachers like yourself out there. So I want to say that there's capability.
But
And
so let me
yeah,
respond to that before you go to the second one.
okay.
And that is one of the things that I love to do with men is that I have this 3 pages of 3 columns on each page of feeling words,
Yes.
right? It's like a miracle that there
Mhm.
are that many feeling words in the world. And so I send that to them and I say, print it out, put one on your desk, one on the kitchen table, one, next to your coffee table, just spread them out, right? Because your brain is brilliant. Your
Yep.
brain can recognize what you're feeling. So if you just run through that list,
Mhm.
immediately your brain will just pop out a
Yes.
word. Your brain can recognize what you're feeling. So you've never lost any of that capability. You just can't access it because we put up these fences.
Yep.
You're not supposed to go out there.
Yeah.
And so the feeling sheets, just the words, the language are so incredibly helpful to these guys who really have narrowed their feeling vocabulary. And they just pick it up like that.
Yep.
It's easy.
100%. I'm glad you interjected with that. And either if you are able to give those sheets in the show notes, because in these interviews, this is about expert interviews with practicality. So, and if so, I'd love to have your sheets. And if not, I will include a feelings wheel in the show notes, one or the other. And I'm going to just drop this as a practical. If you did nothing but listen to this interview
Uh-huh.
and downloaded these feelings, and in your expression, learned how to say "I feel" and then pick the thing. So you
And
name
fill
and
in the
claim it
blank. Right.
and a lot of the times, and I'm still working on this, and say, I feel, and so I need. If you
Uh-huh.
just learn how to complete that sentence, you will be more emotionally aware and you'll become your own emotional advocate.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel nervous right now and I need someone to tell me it's going to be okay. Oh my
Hmm.
gosh, imagine a guy saying that. I just said it out loud. When you learn that structure, it can be life changing. So I wanted to interject there as well.
Yeah, that is well said, really.
Okay, so I'm going to add that in the notes. So I wanted to, so the second, and you can get it later, Gloria. We can worry about that later.
Okay.
The second half. So one is capability. The second half, which is huge, like huge, is this idea of safety. Because it's one thing if I know what to do or what to say, even if I have
Hmm.
access to, um, oh, right, I feel nervous right now, and so what I need is, it's a good example for someone just to tell me it's going to be okay, or I need to know what's going to happen next, or I need whatever it is. I might actually have access to that, but depending on my environment, I might not feel safe.
Hmm.
That's okay that I express that. And
Absolutely.
and in my experience, most of that is pattern fear. So I want to express what I think, and then I'd love to hear your like, what do you versus reality? Like, if I actually said what I felt and found the words for it,
Hmm.
I would say in 90% or more of the situations, that's going to go way better than the fear that I imagined of it not.
I think you're right on target.
in almost every situation. Work,
Hmm.
relationships. I experience probably
Hmm.
most in my primary relationship where I'm like, oh, I'm not sure if I say this, like I'm worried about the response. And it's like if we
Hmm.
can forget the response and just actually be an advocate for ourselves, I think there's some
But
magic there.
you can understand if you have heard what I said about, the developmental process, you can understand why the male would be cautious,
Yes,
avoidant, questioning, is it safe to go into feelings territory?
100%. So, when we talk about the stages from, we'll say, if you're not capable and not feeling safe, what are some of the practical things that you would recommend? Like if I'm a man listening to this, and I'm
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, actually, like one, I'm not capable to have those conversations. You'll be able to you'll feel that right away. And two, and I don't know if I would ever say those words. If that's the response of a listener, what do you recommend? Like where would they start? What's the very practical like next step
Yeah,
or
start with
next steps?
reading. Start with reading,
Yeah,
right? Get the Read, Reflect, Respond book. Read anything that has to do with educating you about men and how men grow, how men think, how men feel. There are good books, right?
yep,
Head to Amazon, do
yeah,
a search for yourself. Let your brain, your body pick something that resonates with you. You could do How the Body Keeps the Score. You want to be
that's a
able
good one. That's a really
to
good one.
learn about your body's experience and use body cues to help you acknowledge, oh, there's a feeling buried here
Yep.
somewhere, and I should go fishing for it. I should look for it.
Yeah, that's perfect, and I love the examples there. So, and it covers both, right? It's like you can read and be
Hmm.
totally safe because people don't even have
Hmm.
to know what you're reading if you're worried about it. So,
Right, right.
um, I love the recommendation, How the Body Keeps a Score. Relatively short
It's
read,
wonderful, right?
full of lots of great stuff. Also, a really good audiobook, and then Your Read, Reflect, Respond. So I'm going to include both of those in the show notes.
That's great.
And then as that progresses, um, as things come up, I want to throw some advocacy of like, don't do this work alone.
Mm, true.
Whether that's with a coach or a
Hmm.
therapist or a group.
Hmm.
Um, these
And
these
there are
things,
some wonderful men's groups being formed out there, some educational
yeah,
organizations that are taking the emotional needs of men really seriously. And they do presentations, they do groups, they do retreats, they provide kind of one-on-one matches and assistance. There's opportunity for the male that was never available before,
yes,
right? So, and there is change. When I talk to people doing research in this area, there are clear changes happening with our adolescent boys now
yeah,
because they've been given this permission to be able to express. We no longer whack them in the chest for crying,
yep,
right? We embrace them, or we at least tolerate them standing there and crying. We don't shut them off. So there is growth happening kind of all over the culture. And if you're a guy, you want to be a part of that.
yeah,
All right. You want to access everything that you're capable of experiencing and expressing. You were born with this capability. You want to access it.
yeah. I love that. What's coming out I might even put in even like there's a responsibility and an opportunity to reclaim that
Hmm.
access.
Hmm.
And I think responsibility just from a worldly, like, yes, there's a whole other realm of experiences to be had, and also there's a responsibility to kind of um,
Raise
the,
to raise awareness
yeah,
to, I love your word of reclaim
yeah,
because it's always been there.
yeah.
We just have, as a culture, restricted your access. We don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, amazing. Just before we talk about your book coming up, I want to throw one more kind of practical suggestion, particularly for males listening to this, is uh, so read. That's a great one. Start a conversation with another male,
Hmm.
with something that's like maybe outside of your comfort zone, and watch what happens.
Hmm.
Typically, we'll only find this in our closest like personal male relationships, and those are the ones you feel trusted, and then you talk about all the stuff, and
Hmm.
then there's so much outside of it that's just like surface level. Uh,
That's a great suggestion, right? To take the risk of
Take the
starting a
risk.
conversation with a male friend that you trust, and just explore what's their experience of feelings. What's
Yeah.
your experience of feelings? And see if you can find a connection that will be safe enough that this is a person that you can go to and talk about feeling experiences.
And I'll even go into I'll create some bridges on that. And being in the locker rooms and being part of the male culture, I would say I've had some experience with this. So um, some bridge questions that you might start with are, hey, what do you got going on this year that's really exciting?
That's a good question.
Because
Yeah,
that
you're
it's
asking for feeling content in that
yes,
question. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so that's the practicality. So I want to talk about your book coming up, something you've been working on for a long time,
That's right.
and I absolutely love the title. Love it. And it's called How Not to, and it's written FU with some signs and some like three other signs. How not to F up being a father,
Being a father, right?
right? As a father, had I seen that book on the shelves, I don't know how I wouldn't have not taken it. Uh, so tell us about what this book is going to be about. Why did you birth it into the world? It's coming up this spring. What is this book about? How not to F up being a father.
Yeah, this will land on Amazon in the spring. And it's been a book that's been developing in my heart since the beginning of my practice. And after I finished kind of the whole process of working with preschool boys and then moving into working with their fathers and their fathers' friends, I made a commitment to myself at that point that I was going to write and share with other men what men have taught me about being a male in this culture. And that's what this book is about. All right. It is stories of real men going through the process of discovering their emotions, taking the risk of owning them, and then just thrilled with the fact that they can now have access to the full range of feeling states. It's been a journey of love for me.
I love that. I love that you've stuck with it and that you're going to be publishing this for men to really glean off the wisdom of the stories of other men that you've, been in the presence of and help them through to access both a greater capability and a confidence that they can have trust that we're no longer living in most cases. And I think I'm going to use that 90%. We're not living in environments where those things will be rejected.
Correct.
Um,
Yeah, it is men are welcoming these connections with other men. They're seeking it out. That's why kind of all these male organizations are forming. And you can find male retreats in a variety of places, actually all over the world
yes.
now, because it's become such a need for men to learn more about themselves and to access all of these feeling states that are housed in their body and brain.
Yeah, it reminds me, about 4 years ago, we held our first I Am Festival family camp, and I ran a father's circle. And it was basically a group of dads talking about fatherhood. And I created the safe space with a couple of, intro sentences. And I had men, I still actually have men that experience that come back and say, that was one of the most impactful conversations I've been a part of in a long, long time. Yeah, so I definitely resonate with the ability to access retreats, and in my transformation retreats, that's one of the biggest things that happens between individuals is the permission to connect and express. So absolutely resonate with these messages. Okay, so thank you so much, Gloria, for coming on.
You're
Um,
welcome.
the next steps, as you're listening, there's going to be a bunch of practical items that we talked about in the show notes. Big recommendation to download, read, reflect, respond. That is Gloria's direct work. And the best place to get in touch with Gloria is on LinkedIn. Reach out to her for a connection. And she also runs a Substack blog that she publishes every week. So those I'll also include in the show notes.
Thank
With
you.
that,
Thank you, Maurice. Yes, I would love to connect more with people out there.
yeah, you bet. Okay, so I'm gonna put both of us on the spot here as we close, and this could end up turning into something, or we might just erase this section. We'll find out. Um, But one of the things I'm doing, I didn't tell you about this. So one of the things I'm doing in these expert interviews is I love to unpack, like we just did, what's the history, what's your modality, what's your body of work about? So we've done that. And then I will bring on a live client for you to actually be able to do some of that work. So people can see, right, here, feel it actually happen. I didn't organize a live client today. However, last time I checked, I am a man.
You
And
are a live client.
I am a live client, so I'm going to open up myself to the space, and if you are open to play, um, just spend a few minutes. If I were a client walking, this was our first session today, and we know each other well enough that we could probably just drop right into it.
Right.
Would you be open to maybe doing some coaching therapy that might bring me into
Let's,
more awareness and
yeah,
access
let's go
to?
for it.
Okay, so my name's Maurice.
Welcome, Maurice. It's good to see you today. And I'm
Thanks so
glad to
much.
be with you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So, where do we start? Where do
Well,
we?
tell me what is on your mind today. I know that you've done a lot of work
Mhm.
on understanding yourself, opening access to your feeling states. Just what is on your mind today?
Yeah, let me feel into that. Mm. One of the things that I would say continues to be perpetual for me is this idea that I'm on a clock that I might not catch up to.
Mhm.
The speed that I'm moving. In some ways, just that never really feels fast enough, and that creates some concern, some worry. So,
Interesting.
so that's one pretty
Okay.
perpetual thing that that occurs for me.
And when you say you are on a clock, where are you in relationship to the clock?
When I'm triggered by it, I feel like I'm behind. I'm looking at the
Okay.
clock and I'm late.
Okay.
And yeah.
So can you go inside and look for other associations to being late, other points in history and time?
Oh, interesting. Not like when I think of, there's nothing that comes up when I think of being a kid, even growing up into, like I didn't start feeling like I was late until I probably started to dream bigger than my current situation, which was, you know, maybe midway through, no, maybe early to midway through my career, like
Mm-hmm.
things like that would pop up.
Mm-hmm.
It's become most alive when I left the container of of a job and stepped
Okay.
into entrepreneurship. That's when it
Okay.
became most alive.
Yeah, so you left safety,
Yep.
a job, company, a paycheck. Those are all symbols of safety.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Hmm. And do you know if you think about that transition, leaving the safety of a job that's predictable and taking the risk of basically flying on your own, why'd you do it?
It was very much a heart-based decision. I felt like there was more for me to do. And I've always, like, I've been pretty conscious about what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and wanting to make sure that that bucket was full.
Hmm.
And that bucket didn't feel full anymore. And it really felt like I was dishonoring myself if I didn't step away, if
Hmm.
I didn't go and at least try.
And how's it worked out so far?
It's been a winding road, or a maybe a winding road of hills and valleys,
Uh-huh.
with some amazing people and some glorious experiences, both in personal development and in impact. I've made more impact than we can never look back and know where we would have ended up being, but like the depth of the impact that I've been making has been exactly what I'd signed up for.
So there's a fit for you
So that's
when
been a fit.
you,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, a
The
beautiful fit, right? That you left the safety of a company to create something that would have an impact. And you've actually done that. You've felt it.
yeah. Yeah. So that it feels like when I hang on to that, that feels really really fantastic. Um,
And so this image of hanging on to it, flesh that out for me. What are you holding on to?
well, I'm probably hanging. I'm probably. I'll use the analogy. If I could hang, literally hang some pictures on the wall, that would remind me
Ah,
of the things that I would be best served to remember um, and to celebrate. Uh, those things would be these moments of transformation.
what a
It,
beautiful idea.
yeah, it took a
Really?
long, long time to create and a lot of money and a lot of fear and scary
Mhm.
times and sacrifice. But it's like, hey, I can put the life inventory assessment on the wall and say this is helping people. Now I can put pictures of the coaches that are using it in their practice on the wall. I could put your picture, Gloria, on
That
there
would
and
be a
say,
beautiful wall.
yeah, it
It
would be.
would
Yeah.
really be a beautiful wall.
That
Do you
wall's
think it
quite,
would anchor you in
yes.
this reality that you have created what you intended to create?
Yeah. Thank you for taking me there. That feels, if I allow myself to see that wall,
Hmm.
absolutely fills up with um, feelings. You have access to this vocabulary because I've worked on it.
Hmm.
Feelings of inspiration, of humility and pride together,
Super.
of accomplishment, of contribution, of creation, of relationships, of
Hmm.
connection. Yeah, so that's a pretty strong wall of
That's a
motivation.
very strong wall. You have to create that wall. That's your homework. You have to create that wall.
Okay, I accept.
Good. That's wonderful. Well
Awesome.
done.
Well, thanks for doing that with me. That was
You're
rapid
welcome.
and fast. And what we have an opportunity to do is maybe unpack, right? So, what did you do there? How did you've been doing this for 50 years. Maybe
Right.
just to unpack, how did you get me from a state of I don't know if I'm doing it fast enough
Hmm.
to a state of inspiration and celebration? What did you do specifically?
I followed the breadcrumbs. Do you remember that children's story?
Yep.
All right. I followed the breadcrumbs. All right. There's a resonance in your chest when you're talking about this insecurity. Yet I know enough about you to know that there are successes, all right? Numerous successes out there, and you don't see them. And so then I just followed my heart to help you actually see them, and you turned them into pictures.
Hmm, awesome. Yeah, thanks for unpacking that. Yeah,
You're welcome.
the
I look
it's
forward to seeing you all.
especially for the certified coaches that have been through my training,
Yeah,
they'll appreciate
think
me
of it.
saying this when I hear you unpack what you did.
Hmm.
Um, you were in total rapport with me, and you partnered with me and let me
Hmm.
lead. Uh, you trusted your intuition, so you followed your heart.
Right.
Um, and then that led us to some great places. So thank you
Yeah,
for being
beautiful
the
place.
awesome practitioner that you are. And
Thank
with
you.
that, for those that were listening now and into the future, we wish you a very fulfilled life, particularly for the men out there. Start a conversation, start with a book. The
Hmm.
access to your natural range. I
Right.
did
It's
not
all
know.
still there. It's
It's
it's all still there.
it's there.
It
It's
is
worth fighting
accessible.
for. It's
Hmm.
worth fighting for.
Right.
And as Gloria's experience has said, you will be a quick study. Yeah, there's a really good chance
Hmm.
that you'll be a really quick study on it. So
Right.
take a first step is my hope to you.
Mine
Okay,
too. Thank you, Maurice.
thanks everyone, and we're signing off. Take
All
care.
right.